An important and rewarding final step in writing any sketch is sharing it with other people. There are lots of ways to share your work. You can give people an application that they can run on their computer, you can point them to a web page, or you can give them an app that runs on their phone, tablet, or other device. Let's look at how you can share your sketch in each of these media. Suppose you'd like someone to run your sketch on their computer. You can export an application. That means you take your sketch, which normally runs inside of the whole processing development environment, and you can send it to someone as a standalone application. Let me show you how to do this. I'll start with this program called Yellow Box. You can see it's very simple. Setup creates a graphics window, and Draw just draws a moving yellow box. I use a couple of lines that call the sign routine to move the left and top of the box around over time. Then I have a routine called mouse pressed, and if I click the mouse in the box, it either starts moving or stops moving. So this will be my example program. Let's run it. Here we are, the yellow box is moving around. If I click, it stops, and then if I click again, it starts again. If I click outside of the box, which I'm doing now, nothing happens. I click inside, it stops. I click again, it just jumps to wherever it's going to go, and it keeps moving. Very simple. Okay. Let's take a look at the directory that holds this file. Well, there's no surprise here. The file is called yellowbox.pde, and it lives inside of a folder called Yellow Box. Now let's see how to export it as an application. If you've ever noodled around in Processing's menu bar, you may have noticed that under File, there are a couple of options we haven't discussed yet. One is Export, and another is Export Application. It's Export Application that we want right now, so I'll select that. And I get an interesting window here, Export Options. Processing is offering to create a standalone application for each of these three different operating systems, Windows, Mac, and Linux. And of course, we can turn some of these options on and off if there are operating systems we don't want to use, or we can choose all of them. You can also choose whether your application should take over the whole screen, if it should be in full screen mode. And if you choose that, you get to choose whether or not it should also show a stop button. I'll leave that off. Now I'll hit the Export button. Here's the Yellow Box folder, the very same folder we were looking at before. And you'll notice that in addition to yellowbox.pde, the source file, we have three new folders, application.windows, application.macOSX, and application.linux. Of course, each of these folders holds the application written for that operating system. Before you sent this to someone, you would probably want to rename the folder. I'm on a Mac right now, so let's open up application.macOSX. Inside, we have two files. On the left, we have a folder called Source, which Processing creates to hold some of the files that it needs to run the application. On the right, we have yellowbox.app. That is the standalone application. That's the program someone can run. You'll notice that the icon has a little cup of coffee on it. That's because this program is written in Java, and the computer knows that, so it's showing us the icon for a Java program. Let's run yellowbox.app. And here we are. It's just running our standalone application. If I click in it, it stops. If I click in it again, it starts again. And notice I'm not inside of the processing development environment. This is a standalone program like Word or Illustrator or Photoshop or anything else that you might run on your computer. It's just a standalone program. So you can package this up and send it to a friend and they can run it. Or you can install this in a kiosk, in a museum, or show it as a demonstration. You can do whatever you want with this standalone program. Another way to share your work is to embed it in a web page. To do that, we use the other of the two choices that we saw a moment ago, simply export. Let's go ahead and look at that. Before we get started, I'm going to throw away the folders we just made. So the Yellow Box directory has nothing in it but the single source file yellowbox.pde. Now once again, I'll go to the File menu, and this time I'm going to choose Export. There are no options. It creates a bunch of files ready for embedding in a web page, And here's the folder. Yellowbox.pde is still in there, but there are 4 new files. These are the files that processing has just made. The one we care about is index.html. If you are familiar with web pages, then you know that HTML means that this is a page that can be loaded into a web browser. It uses the other files to help it show your sketch. Let's see what happens if I just double-click on index.html. This is what we get. Well, this is pretty darn cool. This is my application running inside of a web browser. And if I click on the yellow square, it stops. If I click on it again, it starts again just like before. So this is a great way to share your sketch with the world. Just embed it in a web page. Notice that there's some text under my window. The first line reads, "Behold the glory of the yellow box, click it to start or stop moving." Where did that come from? We'll get to that in a second. Underneath that, processing automatically includes a couple of links. A link to the source code, so somebody who's looking at my program can see exactly how I made it, and a link to processing itself, so that they can download the system and start changing the program if they want to. So where did this line of text with the instructions to click the box come from? It was in my program all along, but at the very top. The very first line of my program is just a comment, and it is just a comment. But immediately after it is a special comment. Notice that it starts not with /*, but /**. Well, the /* is all processing needs to say, oh, this is the start of a comment, and the / ends the comment. So as far as processing is concerned, this is just a normal, everyday garden variety comment. But because it starts with a /**, when you choose export, processing will take the contents of this comment and put them underneath your sketch. So let's add another line. So there's some more text. So first I'll save it, then I'll export again, and I'll run the program again. And there we are. All the new stuff that we've typed appears underneath. So if you just want to make a very quick and dirty web page, this is a way of including some information along with your sketch, telling people how to use it. Of course, if you prefer to put your sketch inside of a web page with lots of other stuff going on, that's just fine. It's just another element in the web page, like a picture or a piece of text or anything else, and you can just drop your sketch into any web page. A word of caution here. On some web browsers, your changes might not show up properly unless you take some special action to force the browser to load the new version of your page. You may need to do something called clearing the cache. The mechanics for this vary from one browser to the next, so if you're having trouble seeing your changes, look up clearing the cache in your browser's documentation. Finally, what if you want to share your sketch on a mobile device, like a phone or a tablet? There's no built-in way in processing to do that. Instead, there's an open source project called processing.js. This is the umbrella name for an organization of people who are volunteering their time and effort and skills to make an environment that can run processing on a phone or a tablet. You can get yourself a copy of this by visiting their homepage, processingjs.org. Now you might be wondering, what is this JS thing? Remember that processing is translated into a language called Java. We just saw that in our application icons, where the icon showed us it was a Java program. Processing.js goes into a different language. The language is called JavaScript. Now you might think, hey, JavaScript, that's just like Java, right? And no, it's not. In fact, these are completely separate languages. The name JavaScript was chosen because it has some similarities to Java. The big advantage here comes from the fact that a lot of devices, like tablets and phones, don't have Java built into them. They just don't know how to run a Java program. But this whole other language called JavaScript, that they know, that one they can manage. So the idea behind the processing.js movement is to read in your processing file and rather than turn it into Java, they turn it into JavaScript. I won't go into the mechanics for this here because processing.js is under very active development and it's a moving target. Things change very rapidly. So if you're interested in preparing your sketch so it can be run on a tablet or a smartphone, check out the processingjs.org webpage. They always have up-to-date information on how to go through the process of preparing your program for JavaScript. However you choose to go about it, sharing your processing sketch with other people is always a rewarding experience.